Really? Really? Okay, I think we can go on. So part... Oh. Okay. Let's try again. Hello and welcome, or welcome back to the series where I show you how I painted this portrait and hopefully give you some guidance on how to paint a portrait. Now this is part 4 and parts 1, 2 and 3 will be linked below in the description and probably somewhere up here. So here we'll be painting eyes and eyebrows and we will get there, but as the title suggests, it's more of a lesson in what not to do. However, it is also a lesson in not stressing out about mistakes, because mistakes can be fixed and I will be fixing several along the way. So don't panic, grab a towel, let's go. Don't panic. Don't panic. This creepy situation is where we left off last week because we're trusting the process. And these are the brushes I will be using for this. Number 6, number 2 and number 0. I will put the names of these brushes down below in the description. Not sponsored, just, you know, the names, so that you can see exactly which ones I'm using. I start with brows. I'm applying an even coat of a darker brown here. This is sepia. Although I tried to keep some real-time speed shots here, the footage was over an hour long, so a lot of this will be in ×2 or ×4 speed for the sake of everyone's sanity. The brows are dark at each end, so that's why I added extra paint here. I will be jumping between the brows and eyes here, giving one a chance to dry whilst I work on the other one. Not sure if you're aware of this fun fact, but the whites of the eyes are never actually white, which is why I'm using a very dilute Payne's grey to fill this out. I'm then adding a bit more colour to the corners of the main eye to start creating an illusion of 3D shape. And in doing so, I've used a little bit too much water and too much pigment, so I'm using a dry brush, you will see in a minute, to scoop that up. Next I'm adding a touch of blue just to keep consistent with the blue tones of the skin. The left eye is largely in the shade, so I'm using the shadow mixture from Skin Painting, which was Indian Red, Burnt Sienna, Cadmium Red Pale, Cadmium Orange and Lamp Black, but I'm replacing Lamp Black with Payne's Grey for this. The creases of the eyes are pretty deep, plus there is black eyeliner, so I'm using the mixture heavy on Payne's Grey to begin with, and we'll be using black later on. Why did I say main eye before? Good question. This is something I heard from another artist and it makes sense to me. There is a school of thought that only one eye should be in focus on a portrait painting, and if you look at some of the masters you will see that, especially John Sargent. This is something to do with creating a single focal point in a portrait. And now it's time for the pupil. I'm just using plain old black here. I don't want the pupil to bleed into the highlight area, but it is not that defined in the shadow, so I'm blending it out, and then I'm also blending out the outline because it's not that harsh. This highlight is not actually that bright, so I'm darkening it a bit. And although the pupil of the practice eye is not that visible, it still is visible, so I am including it and darkening the general area. And now I'm adding some details to the eyebrows by painting in brow hairs, trying to follow the direction of the hairs in the photo and thus creating texture. The texture that I did not end up keeping. The shadows within the eye socket and skin around the eyes are technically skin, but I view them as part of the eye. I find it really hard separating the two because they define each other and work together. In hindsight, I'm not really loving the hard edge of the brow highlight, but it's a bit too late to rescue it completely, but we'll return to it. One thing beginner artists often forget when drawing or painting eyes is that the eyelids are very much three-dimensional and they're not a thin flap of skin stuck to the eyeball. But as any three-dimensional object, how much of them we can see and therefore paint will depend highly on the angle. There are definitely very pronounced lower lid, I'm going to call them shelves because I couldn't find a name. If you know the name, please let me know. And I made them even more pronounced. I'm seeing quite a bit of blue on the bottom of the eyeball, so I went in with that and then, oh no, I've messed up, but not to worry. All I'm doing is trying to mop it up, then I will go in and dab it with a cloth and then let it dry and it will be fine. By now you probably have noticed that I'm repeating same steps over and over again, building more depth and detail with each layer. I'm working with Arches paper and therefore I can do that. This paper takes quite a bit of abuse. It is my goal to learn to paint more strategically, achieving results with a lot less layers, but in the meantime this is my process. I would also note that I'm using mainly student grade paints, and those are not as pigmented as professional grade paint. Using professional grade would give you more saturation with a lot less effort. I'm using a fine liner and I filmed it upside down, so there's that. And I'm using it for defining smaller details and darkening the iris. And I also did that mainly covering everything up with my thumb, so yay for me! I used this white Posca pen to bring back some of the highlights lost in the process. Unfortunately, I covered quite a bit of that with my thumb. Here I used it for the reflection in the eye and the iris highlight. I noticed that it did not have a dark outline all the way around and the bottom right side had a highlight to the edge. So I fixed that with this pen, some water, a little bit more colour and a trusty tissue dab. I messed up the eyeliner wing, and because it's black it kind of stained, so I just used some Posca pen to white it out and fix it. Easy. And here the iris of the eye is no longer round, so I'm fixing that with the same method pretty much. And at the same time I'm bringing back some white into the whites of their eyes because they got a little bit dull. And here I took out most of the texture out of the eyebrows, and I was going to put it back in, and full disclosure, completely forgot. Me and my thumb are using Posca pen to highlight the arch of the brow, the lower lid shelf, between the eyelashes and the skin in the corners of the eyes. Lastly, I'm painting in the last shadow on the eyeball and connecting it to the same shadow on lower lid, and we are done. The next video will be the last in the series, and we will be painting lips, nose and hair. So I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye!